Been a minute since I've been on Kentucky Basketball Access, but I feel like a lot has happened over the last I don't know, year and a half. And Kentucky basketball is I wouldn't say we're at a crossroads by any means, but I think we can't have enough assessments of what I believe to be the preeminent college basketball program in the nation. Let me just first say that I love Mark Pope. I love the passion he has for Kentucky basketball. I think he understands the culture, he understands the implications of winning and losing. And so I think that's why you see him so devastated and demoralized after a loss. But let me give you kind of my thoughts really quickly. And I'm going to talk about Mark Pope, and I'm going to give you my kind of blunt concerns. And I think, I'll be honest, I don't have a ton of optimism, but at the same time, I have a lot of hope. I have no problem saying I hope we can get this thing on track. Let me start out with some critiques with this current kind of the program, Mark Pope, and this current team. So first and foremost, you have to beat a quality opponent. It was great last night, beat Loyola Maryland. However, again, stacking wins against sub-tier teams mean absolutely nothing. You can inflate your KenPom ratings right now and your Evan Mewa ratings and the analytics and the metrics, but at the end of the day, what matters is beating quality opponents, because we all know when you get to the NCAA tournament, out-of-conference wins are essential. And what I believe this, and again, it's very subjective, because being a sports fan and analyzing sports, it's like, we're so wrong so much of the time. So here's what I think. December is going to be the key month for us, okay? We have Gonzaga, we have Indiana, we have St. John's, okay? Those teams are going to be critical, okay? We have 4 games against really good opponents in North Carolina. So you have 4 games in the span of like 3 weeks against quality opponents. You have to win three out of those 4 games. If you split those, especially if you go 1-3 or if you go 0-4, I don't see the trajectory of this program this year being successful. Let's backtrack a little bit. Let's do some micro things I see. So here's my assessment about Mark Pope. Brilliant analytical mind. I think he analyzes things and critiques things unlike many coaches. With Cal, we kind of like juxtapose Cal with Pope. With Cal, you had someone who went by instinct, right? He had a blueprint of playing young guys, athletic dudes. His kind of mantra was, you've been here, you're a young dude, you play really well, you're successful, go to the NBA. That was his blueprint. He didn't really use analytics, he used more instinct, he used more gut, he was more old school, didn't prepare a ton. So now you have Mark Pope, who's in many ways the polar opposite than John Calipari. He uses analytics, he uses metrics, but at the same time, you can kind of box yourself in when you depend upon the metrics and the analytics, and you don't depend on your gut instinct. And one of the things I know about being on basketball for a long time is you have to be instinctual. You have to be willing to disrupt your paradigm, your blueprint. And what I see with Mark Pope is a blueprint, and he's not willing to deviate from the blueprint at times. I kind of say this: Kentucky basketball cannot be socialism. It can't be communism. Against Loyola Maryland, you can have 10 guys who score 9, 10 plus points. Against quality teams like Michigan State right now, who play a physical brand of basketball, if you depend upon this algorithm, this metric that says, you know what, Brandon Garrison should get 20 minutes, Malachi Moreno should get 20 minutes, and the analytics doesn't really matter. The eye test is what matters, okay? And this is my opinion, okay, my humble opinion. And so if you believe, let's just kind of break it down like socialism. And I won't get into much into politics at all, but I think this bears some comparison right now with Kentucky basketball. If you tell a guy like Mo Diabate or Otega Owe or Denzel Aberdeen, look, you're not going to get more than 22 minutes a game. What's the incentive of playing harder? If your analytics say, you know what, this guy is going to maximize his position in 20 minutes or 25 minutes, then you're like, okay, it doesn't matter how I play really, because I'm going to get this amount of minutes. So what's the incentive for that guy to play with just reckless abandonment on the court? And that's a part of seeing these games, at least in my opinion. You're seeing guys who kind of already know what's expected. They know, okay, look, I'm going to get 20 minutes this game. So again, if that's the metric, and Mark again is driving the analytics are driving almost every decision he's making. And I'm not saying, again, that's great in some ways. That's totally better than what Cal was doing in some ways. But it can hamstring guys. I can tell you from a player's perspective, you have to, college basketball players, and NBA players too for that matter, you have to be able to get into a rhythm. And also, there's got to be accountability. And that's part of my critique of Pope is I don't feel like there's accountability in the moment. In the Michigan State game was a perfect example. A guy like Brandon Garrison, and I don't want to be too critical of Brandon Garrison, but my concern is Brandon Garrison there was not accountability with him in that game. There were a few plays that were inexplicable. The viral moment of him, missing 2 offensive rebounds, but there are plays where he's not playing physical, not boxing out, he's not grabbing the rebound, and he lacks a lot of just pure athleticism. We're just being honest. But here's the thing, and I'm using this as an example because in the moment, you don't have to embarrass someone, you don't have to defame someone. Sometimes Cal would do, or act maniacal like Bobby Knight or Frank Martin. You don't have to do that, but you have to, as a college basketball coach, you have to be willing in the moment to hold guys accountable. And my concern was, especially during this game, was Mark was not holding guys accountable in the moment. And Mark Pope said after the press conference, look, I don't want to just scream and rant and lose control, because in the moment that may be therapeutic, and I get that. You don't want to rant, rave, and embarrass kids in the moment. I get that. I support that completely. But there's also a distinction to be had there. You have to be willing in the moment to hold guys accountable, not just at halftime or after the game, because as a basketball player, I can tell you this, if I'm doing something on the court and I'm lackluster effort, where I do something that I know I shouldn't do, but there's not accountability in the moment. Like in the NBA, it's different. You can't have guys doing that as much because they're grown men. They're getting paid tons of money. Although college basketball right now, they're getting paid a lot of money too. So this kind of adds a new wrinkle to this. But you have to show guys, look, this is unacceptable. You cannot do this on the court. You cannot not hedge on a screen. You can't not switch if that's what we're doing. I'm using these as examples. And what's concerning me at times is I don't see the immediate accountability during games with Mark Pope with players. And again, this is a layman's perspective. Like, I'm not a major basketball coach in Division I. I'm not saying that, but I do have enough instinct, and I've been around the game long enough to tell there's something off. And I don't know if it's Pope's just overall demeanor, how he wants to continually just embrace the nice guy appeal, or if it's a philosophy that he doesn't think that that's going to bring out the needed performance from his players if he does that. But I've never, guys, in my time watching basketball, being around it, playing it, I've never seen a coach during a game be so stoic. And I'm not saying he's ambivalent, because I believe he cares, but there was nothing was said. I mean, there were things that players were doing. I mean, even Otega Owe, there was nothing. I mean, and if you're a player and there's not accountability, there's not a critique in the moment, if that's not happening, that's just, you're going to continually cultivate that behavior. And so against a game like Loyola Maryland, where you're overwhelming them with talent, it's easy to be able to play physical. It's easy to be able to get to your spots. It's easy to be able to overwhelm someone because of sheer talent. So again, my critique is accountability in the moment, having analyzed, drive everything you're doing, and not using enough instinct, not using enough kind of gut feeling of who should be in the game. And one of my main critiques right now with our system of play, or specifically with Mark Pope, is I have yet to see a college basketball coach, recent era, win a national championship who did not have a certain level of tenacity and veracity on the sidelines. And Mark Pope, very rarely, he's very docile. He's seemingly not unengaged, but not tenacious. And that concerns me. I'm hoping that he can cultivate that better, because in my opinion, if you don't have players who naturally can cultivate that energy, that tenacity, fire, you need to be able to have a coach who can instill that or cultivate that or invoke that in your players. And what I'm seeing or not seeing with Mark Pope is his ability to do that. And I think he can. I don't think this is like, critique is not, this is how Mark Pope's going to be. This is his lot and his destiny as the basketball coach. This is just my observation, especially this year. And you can talk about the X's and O's. You can talk about the type of player. I think Mark Pope has that down. I think that's fine. I think his ability to write up plays, draw up plays, to prepare, that's fine. I think he's totally adequate. It's more a philosophical approach. And so I'm hoping that he's willing to adjust, because if you're not willing to adjust, similar to how Cal's demise was, he wasn't willing to adjust, wasn't willing to be malleable, and ultimately his stubbornness led to his demise, led to his tenure ending here at Kentucky. And so I think I'm not throwing in the towel by any means. I think December is going to be a huge month for us. I can do it. I think we can win 3 out of the 4 games. Hopefully we can get all 4 and go into the SEC tournament play or SEC against Alabama on a roll. That's important. I'll say this lastly. Last year we did not, in Power 5 games, after I think the first 4 or 5 games, we had 1 winning streak of 3 games. That was at the end of the year, very end of the year. We did not have a time last year where we won more than 3 games in a row after December. That's the truth, okay? And the 3 games we won in a row in like the early part of the season were against a few good teams and a few bad teams. My concern is, can we sustain success? Can Mark Pope, in sustaining success, sustaining excellence in performance is a mentality. If you play sports and you play basketball, it's an approach. And again, can he do that? Can he effectuate that with this team? Because to me, if you cannot win more than 4 games in a row during a regular season in conference, that does not bode well. No team has won the national championship, I think, in the last 30 years who has not had at least a 5 or 6 game winning streak. You've got to be able to string together games in a row and to develop a system that is consistent. Can Mark Pope do that? It's yet to be determined. I believe he can. But here are the things. I think you have to be willing to be malleable. And malleability doesn't mean you're malleable within your blueprint or within your framework of analytics. You have to be willing to deviate. And at the end of the day, when Jaden Quaitons comes back, and hopefully when Jalen Lowe comes back, if you got to play guys 35 minutes, you got to do that. I believe you have to have 7 players who, like, you look, at any given night, I can put you in and play you for 30 minutes. And then you have other guys on the bench who can come in and supplement that if you have to, for foul trouble or if a guy's just totally off. But you have to, in my opinion, you have to be willing to play guys 30 to 35 minutes if they're on a roll. They're 20, 21, 22-year-old young men. They're at the optimal shape of their lives. You've seen that in other teams throughout the history of college basketball. Playing 10 or 11 guys, I think, is a blueprint for success, especially right now with the team we have. 15 different. 1996 different. That's not this team. That's my quick, blunt analysis of Kentucky basketball. I think, guys, in my prediction, actually, I'm not going to predict. I have no idea. Do I hope we can turn this around? I think we can. Starts against North Carolina December 2nd. And then we have, I believe, St. John's after that. Gonzaga, I should say. So big games coming up. I think we can do it. That's all I got right now, guys. Maybe I'll see you soon. Kentucky Basketball Access, delivering you this blunt critique on this beautiful Saturday morning. All right, guys. See you.